Hi, so if you watch my channel on a regular basis, you'll know that I do a monthly vlog at the end of every single month on a Sunday, and they are honestly my favourite thing ever to film, but this month there is not going to be one. This is the video instead. I'm just going to sit here and have a chat, give you updates, answer questions. I might put some clips I have filmed during the month on screen, but this is going to be it. So when it comes to updates, if we start with me, I'm okay, I guess. I think the best way to describe how I'm feeling is just burnt out in every aspect of my life across the board. I've got very little left to offer, but I think specifically when it comes to animal related things, I just feel a bit lost. After losing Lukrembo and then losing Fleet and then losing Whisper, I just feel a bit lost with animal related things at the moment. I'm getting that, I'm getting it back, but I just feel a bit off when it comes to that. I think because the three of them were the animals in this room at least that I was the closest to. Not that I don't have a bond with the other ones, but because they had such big personalities, you definitely notice that absence when they're not here. It has been a bit weird and I've just felt a bit lost. But I'm getting there. I think the weather also being cooler definitely helps. I'm actually wearing a jumper today, which I've been longing for months and months, so being able to sit in here and not be uncomfortable and feel like I'm dying and in survival mode because it's so hot has been helpful, so we'll get there. So when it comes to volunteering, I just thought I'd give you a few updates on what I've been doing when it comes to things like that. And my mum said something to me recently, something along the lines of, I can't remember quite how she worded it, but you can't save the world if you're not helping yourself. And that is definitely so true, because especially at the moment with all that's going on and the crisis in terms of people just giving up their pets and dumping their pets with the crisis, I just feel like I want to be doing more. I should be doing more with my time, but that can't come at the expense of my job or my income or my health or my time. There's only so much you can give before you start to suffer. So I have been trying to do a few more things and I'll talk about that in a second, but I think that also didn't help for how burnt out I was feeling. So as you know, I volunteer every single week at an exotic pet refuge for about 6 hours a week. And I started a fundraiser a couple of months ago just to get a bit more money behind us to give them enrichment or better the lives, as some of the animals are a bit more overlooked. So we have still been doing that. I was originally planning on doing a whole video series and showing you where your money's actually going. I decided pretty quickly against that because I really want to do things to my personal standard, or people that are watching and commenting want things done a certain way, and that's really difficult when you're constricted by time, space, money, the fact that they're not your animals and you can't always do exactly what you want with them. So it has been pretty tricky navigating that. I really did have a lot of ideas for that, but we have still been doing things behind the scenes. First thing we did was to upgrade one of the pygmy hedgehogs. So she is super sweet. Her name is Winter. She's actually very friendly for a pygmy hedgehog. Usually they are quite elusive and not really interested in people. She is perfectly fine with being handled, not huffy at all, so she is very sweet. Really small, really dainty, but she did have to have an enclosure upgrade, and we were just working with what we had at the time. Just found an enclosure that was bigger than what she was in. Not ideal, and she has now been upgraded again to a more permanent setup. But we did use a lot of the funds and donations to get her a suitable wheel. She didn't have any sort of wheel before. We also made her a dig box. I got her a bunch of beds and toys, cat toys and foraging toys, things like that. And she was so appreciative. So we did also work on upgrading the hedgehog after we did the sugar gliders. We've also just been advocating for things like rabbits and guinea pigs to have bigger setups and more enrichment. And of all the things we work with, we mostly work with monkeys now, so spider monkeys, capuchins. Of all the things I'm drawn to, it's the harvest mice. They have a special place in my heart, so I'm giving them extra attention, and I took it upon myself to split them into 2 separate groups. They were living in a mixed group, which is quite common with people that keep harvest mice. But for a rescue, they don't need a constant supply of harvest mice reproducing all the time. So I was like, you know what? I will sex them. We'll do a boys group and a girls group. I've never sexed harvest mice before, but fingers crossed, I think I did a good job. So we split them into 2 separate groups. and then gave them a bunch more enrichment, things like sprays and bendy bridges and all sorts of fun things that we scavenged from different things around the refuge, so that's looking super cute too. So as if spending 6 hours a week shoveling monkey poo was not enough, I decided that I also wanted to be doing more. So a couple of weeks ago I agreed to be a volunteer for a local cat rescue, and I was really excited about getting started. I was going to be one of their trappers for stray cats and kittens and feral kittens, and have my own trap and go out and catch the cats and then take them to the rescue, and I was really excited about this, but unfortunately it hasn't worked out. So I'm not going to go too much into detail about this or say which rescue it was, but I did say on Instagram that I was starting this, and if I suddenly stop, this is why. But I think I kind of overestimated how much time it would actually take. A lot of the cats are 30-40 minutes from my house, and that's a lot of round trip driving, so I think long term my work would have started to suffer, or just my time in general would have started to suffer, which is not good, but I think I probably would have stuck it out for the cat's sake. I love cats, I really wanted to help them, but there was a few issues with the way everything was run. It was just quite uncoordinated and quite stressful for me because I didn't feel all that prepared. Now I understand of course just how busy all rescues are and just how much they're dealing with at the moment, and it really makes me sad just how much they're struggling with, but when it comes to volunteers, if they don't really have a system in place to actually make the work they're doing easy and straightforward, that can be quite difficult to actually do the job you're being sent to do. So I went and had a meeting to actually start doing this. I obviously got given the trap to catch the cats, the carrier, and then I was told that I'd be given food. I wouldn't have to buy any of my own cat food to put into the traps, and I was also told that I'd be given like big industrial gloves because feral cats and stray cats, when they bite you or scratch you, and no joke, you can get infections, you can end up in the hospital, you can lose fingers. So I was told that I'd be given things like that, and I wasn't, and then I was kind of thrown into the deep end and told to just start doing it. So off I went to catch my first cat. I hadn't signed any paperwork, I wasn't really prepared, I didn't have any of the right equipment, but off I went, and luckily she was a super sweet cat, just let me pick her up and put her straight into the carrier, didn't even have to use the trap or anything, so luckily that was relatively easy, and I still have all my hands and fingers, but didn't really fill me with much confidence to continue. So I was already halfway there to the rescue where I was picking the cat up, and they knew that I was coming and picking this cat up and then dropping it off. And I said, okay, I'm on the way, and they were like, no, you can't come until this evening, you have to just keep the cat with you. So I couldn't keep her in the car, it was a super hot day, and I was about 35 minutes from my house, so I had to drive all the way back to mine and put the poor thing in the carrier in my garage because I couldn't have her and her ball interacting, and that was not ideal. So it just didn't flow or really make sense to be driving back and forth all the time, which is a shame because I was really excited to help and make a difference for the cat's sake, but I just had to say, look, unfortunately I don't think I can continue, and maybe I will do something similar in the future because I did have a few hours to spare every single week, but not hours and hours of driving back and forth, waiting to be able to drop cats off and stuff. So that's the whole volunteering situation. I think I kind of bit off more than I can chew. I just wanted to do a good thing and help, but I would like to foster cats in the future. I think actually having them here with me would be a better way to spend my time with them. I don't know. So moving on to pet updates, I'm trying to think of what I have to update you on because I have not made a mental list in my head, but first update is that Hubble had his second birthday. Cannot believe I have a 2-year-old cat now, and all of the comments on TikTok and Instagram were like, how is he growing up so quick? And I agree. So of course I had to make him a cake, stick a really silly hat on him, which he was not too pleased about, but he is such a good sport, and I got some really cute pictures of him, and I just can't believe that he is now 2 years old. Moving on to the rats and their introductions. This is probably the most asked question when I ask for questions on Instagram for this video, and that is, have the rats met? Have you started introductions? Yes, I started introductions on Monday, and it did not go to plan at all. I had to stop introductions pretty abruptly, so I was doing the usual carry method with them, and about 2 minutes in, Crumpet just started to kick off, was not happy with the babies, which I wasn't really expecting, because although all my rats at the moment, none of them have been neutered, none of them have been needed to be neutered, which is quite rare because I've had a nightmare with the rats recently in the past couple of years. It's quite rare I don't have a single rat that is lacking balls, so I wasn't really worried about anyone in particular, but Crumpet decided to be the perpetrator. So he started a fight with Aero and got him on the neck and then also on his ear, which I'm so sad about because that's never going to grow back or look the same, and he has the cutest ears ever, so that was really annoying. But he did draw blood on his neck, so as I was moving towards the carrier to actually stop the introductions, because he'd done that, they were sitting separately, they had stopped fighting, they were sitting separately in the carrier, none of them were moving, and I was moving forward to actually stop the introductions, and Crumpet just went insane in the carrier. He was bouncing from side to side, top to bottom, and I was panicking, I was freaking out, because although I've not seen this personally myself, I have seen it enough times on Instagram or Facebook to recognise that he was having a seizure. So he wasn't having a seizure in the typical sense of sitting there and convulsing. Rats, when they have this type of seizure, usually it's related to auditory triggers, so things like hoovers or loud noises. That can trigger rats to kind of ping around the cage and have that type of seizure, but there wasn't any noises in the room. I think it must have just been stress related, so he was pinging around the carrier and I wasn't really thinking straight in the moment. You can sit there and say in the moment that, oh, I should have done this or that, or I should just let him play it out, but I just wanted to get to him and make sure he was okay. So stupidly or not, I opened the carrier and he literally shot up onto the floor, started having a few more like tight circle seizures on the floor, and then darted under a cupboard, and that was the end of that introductions. I separated them, put him back into a dark, quiet room, and just left him alone. But after that, everyone was fine, is fine, and Crumpet was still his usual self, maybe just a bit more tired, and Aero healed up really quickly. The next day you wouldn't have any idea that he had been bitten, so of course I was really worried about trying to induce them again, mostly because obviously I didn't want anyone getting injured. Also, I didn't want Crumpet to have another seizure, so I left them a few days and then I decided to try again. Of course, I was freaking out because I'd never had a rat that had a seizure before, so I did try things and do things a bit differently. I did a lot of neutral space, which I've kind of tapered down and not done as much over the past couple of years. But I did about 2 hours of just having them in neutral space in my shower, and I didn't film any of this because my priority of course is making sure that everyone is okay and just making sure they get along. So had them in the shower and I put everyone else in besides Crumpet, let them get associated with each other and let them all be calm, and then put him in. And honestly, they've been completely fine since. Not a peep, not a fight out of them at all. I had them in the shower for about 2 hours, not like in the shower, but in my shower cubicle in neutral space for about 2 hours, and pretty quickly they were all in a pile cuddling each other, and they've been cuddling ever since. So they are still in intros. I'm not going to film anything because you've seen me do intros many times before. You don't need the same clips over and over because nothing is really happening. They're being all really good, and touch wood, my floor is not real wood, touch wood, it stays like that because we don't need any more fights. So I think that's everything that I have to update you on. Of course, if I have anything else, best place is to follow me on Instagram, where I did ask if you guys had any questions. First one is poop related. We love a poop question, and that is, why does my rat poop every time I take him into the bathroom for free roam? So most young rats or rats that are nervous will do what is called a fear poop, and these are horrendously stinky. So if they are quite new and nervous, they sometimes will just do a poop wherever. But also if your rats are litter trained and you're having them outside of the cage and they've not got access to that, try taking this into their free roam area and giving them access. That should help. Are there any foods you can feed both mice and rats besides block food, like Missouri, like a full diet food? So I would avoid any foods that claim they can be for both rats and mice, or 2 different species like mice and hamsters, just because each species has their own dietary requirements and they need their own percentage of various different things within that, like fats and proteins. Any food claiming they can be for multiple different species probably is not very good, so go for either just own species mixes or blocks if you do want to do that, or try to make your own. Would you ever get a horse if you had the space? I like horses. Horses don't really like me much for some reason, but if I ever had enough space to hold a horse, there's so many other things I'd rather have on that land instead. Things like sheep, alpacas, cows, donkeys. Horses wouldn't be my top choice, and I'm not really interested in all the things that come with having a horse. I wouldn't really be that interested in riding them all the time at least, so if I ever did get a horse, it would maybe be if I had a sanctuary and gave a retirement home to one, but probably not. What are some names you like but won't be using for your future dog? There are so many boys' names out there for dogs that I love, things like Coda and Percy, that I won't be using because 99% sure our dog is going to be female, so those are out of the window. But there is a boy's name I like that goes with our future dog's name, and that is Cove, so might use that in the future if we ever get a second dog down the line and it ends up being male. Tips for husbandry around blind/poorly sighted rats. So I have a blind/poorly sighted rat, and that is Pudding. I don't think he has completely no vision, but he cannot see like this far in front of him, and he's very, very flighty, so I would say with him there's not too much you have to do. Most rats use all of their other senses way more than they use their sight, because most rats can't see very much anyway, but I would definitely recommend announcing your presence. Try not to spook them too much by just appearing there in front of them. Talk to them as you're coming into the room. I have to do that with him, otherwise he freaks out completely, but I try to keep things relatively simple. All of the free roam I keep in exactly the same place. I don't switch it up too much because otherwise he hugs the wall and keeps himself against like flat surfaces, and he's started to be a bit more brave with moving around now he knows where things are, so try to keep things relatively familiar to them so they can know where things are. Do you have a heart rat at the moment? So if you don't know what a heart rat is, I get this question all the time. A heart rat is just a rat that you feel a lot more connected to and a lot more bonded to. I'd say I probably had 2, maybe 3 heart rats. Definitely 2, one was Rolo and then the other one was Crumble. And it's really difficult not having one. Obviously I love all of my rats equally, but having that special bond is really nice to have, and it's really weird not having a heart rat around, so I'm hoping I'll have another one again in the future, but I'm not trying to see those traits in my other rats. I'm just trying to appreciate them as they are and who they are without trying to be like, oh, you're not like Crumble, or oh, you're not like Rolo. I've done that in the past and it can be really self-destructive, so I don't have one at the moment, but hopefully soon. Somebody wants to know, how do you like your car now you've had it for a while? I almost got one. So for anyone that doesn't know, I have a smart car. I'm not afraid to admit I have a smart car, and people can laugh at them all they want. People all the time outside walk past and go, haha, look at that car. And I don't care because I'm not the one that's walking right now. But I like my car, it served a purpose. I have really terrible spatial awareness, and my theory was if I have a smaller car, there's less surface area for me to bump into things, and that has definitely proved true. So I love it, it's fine. I can actually fit a surprising amount of parcels into the back that I can't fit into my boyfriend's car because his boot is way smaller than my smart car, because my smart car doesn't have back seats obviously, so you've got all the extra space. But I would like to get a different car, a bigger car in the future. Terrified about the idea, but with having a dog it's not really practical, and my car doesn't have any aircon, so that's definitely a negative, and it has had some issues in the past, so definitely think it's time to start thinking about and looking for a new car. But I love my little smart car. Someone wants to know, what are your future plans for your channel? So I think about this all the time. I don't really enjoy doing like sit down informational videos that much anymore. I know they really help a lot of people, but I way prefer doing vlogs and showing things and giving education through showing what I'm doing with my animals. I way prefer doing things that way, so I think going forward I'll do a lot more of that kind of thing. And I would love for my channel to be eventually kind of like a big farm, sanctuary, refuge kind of vlog channel, a bit like how Stephanie Morato on YouTube, I watch her videos and just walking around talking about the chickens or the donkeys. That would bring me so much joy, but I need to have a farm first to do that, so no plans at the moment. Would you consider only rescuing rats in the future too? You know what, I actually would. It's been no secret over the past couple of years that I have had a lot of issues with rats that I got from breeders, so that's not really a contributing factor to only get rats and breeders from now on. I've also had rats and rescues or rescued rats that come with their own issues, but I wouldn't rule it out. This isn't me saying that I'll never go back to a breeder again, but I would like to rescue more rats in the future because there are so many more rats out there in rescues or in selling sites than there was 2 or 3 years ago. When I looked back then, there wasn't really that many in my local area. Now there is so many, so yes, I would like to adopt or rescue more rats in the future for sure. Have you finished decorating your house yet? No is the answer. We've been in this house for a year and a month, I think, and it's definitely a slow ongoing process. Most things are kind of like a butterfly effect of things that have to happen for the next thing to happen. The biggest thing being my office and my store is in the 3rd bedroom, and that will have to be moved outside into an external office that hasn't even started being built yet, but once that's happened, that can then be its intended purpose of being a spare bedroom where my family can come and stay because they are quite far away. So that has to happen for that to happen, to then move our big like cupboard thing in there. Once that's moved, we can then build built-in wardrobes and decorate the bedroom because that's not done. So it's a whole process, but we've been doing little things each month, doing a little thing, and this month we've been doing the front garden. We've made little planters and put like slate and stuff out there, so gonna go buy some nice plants for that, but it's definitely a process. Have you heard of the AFRMA? The breeder I've chosen is on the list but has a no return policy, so I don't know. So yes, I've heard of them. That's kind of like the American version of the National Fancy Rat Society or the National Mouse Society that we have in the UK. But the no return policy is a bit suspicious and a bit sketchy to me because most ethical, responsible breeders for whatever species, whether it's rats, so for example like Bagel, my rat, that had to go back to his breeder, she took him back, no questions asked. And for the dog we're getting, most good breeders for any species will take them back and have lifetime backup because that's part of being responsible and making sure they don't end up contributing to them being in rescues or being dumped. So that to me doesn't sound very ethical or very responsible at all. Okay, last question, and that is, which pet would be most likely to be convicted of a crime and what would it be for? Definitely Crumpet. He would probably be done for petty theft or something, because if you were to look under the rat cage right now, there is a leg that was for my tripod. There's a bunch of like hammock clips and cardboard and stuff that he's dragged under there, so if he could get arrested and charged for that, he definitely would. But I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble. I promise next month's vlog is going to be way more interesting because I'm actually going away on some sort of holiday and I've not been in like 5 or 6 years, so going to be showing you prepping all the animals and maybe a bit of the holiday itself. So that's going to be super fun, but thank you for all of your questions. And of course, thank you to my channel members for your continued support. If you are interested in becoming a channel member, we've just made a group chat on Instagram, which is super cute, just sharing pictures of our pets and updates of the pets on Instagram. So if you're currently a channel member and you're not in the Instagram group chat, go and comment your Instagram username on one of the recent channel member posts and I'll add you to that. But if you are interested in joining and joining one of the tiers and supporting the channel, the join button is underneath this video. But thank you for watching, don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!